today we're going to talk about the dreaded F word. No, not that one. It's funnels, okay? We're going to talk about marketing funnels and what makes a good one and what makes a bad one. Hi there. Welcome to Create, Inspire, Convert, a podcast for business owners and marketers who are looking to deepen their knowledge about creative and experience-focused online marketing. I'm your host, Amanda Rosen. Let's get to this week's episode. All right, welcome to today's episode. We're going to start with a pretend scenario. Probably a scenario you're familiar with and have heard before, or maybe even seen on an ad around social media. Like I would bet $50 you've totally seen an ad like this on Facebook. Here's the scenario. Let's say you have a product or service you sell that's $100. Then with organic and paid traffic, like through Facebook or Instagram ads, you somehow reach 100,000 people per month. So these people are seeing a post or an ad from you and they get exposure to you in some way. So of those 100,000 cold people, 10% of them decide to subscribe to your email list. That's 10,000 people now on your email list that have come in over the course of a month. Of that 10,000, you end up targeting them with an ad on social media for your $100 product. And your ad reaches about 10% of that audience. So that's 1,000 people who are seeing your ad each month. And then of those 1,000 people, 10% convert with a solid purchase. So you get 100 purchases out of that original chunk of people. 100 purchases times a $100 product is $10,000 a month that you make. $10,000 a month times 12 months a year is $120,000 a year. Now you have a six-figure income working from home and you can go on vacation. You have freedom to live the life you want and you're finally living with purpose. So I want to know, does that sound familiar? Like I said, I'm sure you've heard some iteration of that somewhere on an ad. Now this, what I've just described, all the numbers aside, is a marketing funnel. So it moves a large group of people from a top area to a bottom area, where the $100 product is the end point. But there's a really big problem with this funnel, like super big. And this problem is for any kind of funnel that is structured this way. Now, before I tell you the problem, I want to first break down what a funnel is a little bit more detailed for anyone listening who has a baking funnel in their mind and they're not totally familiar with this term. So when you think of an actual funnel, like I said, you might think of like a baking implement. So in baking, a plastic funnel has that wide opening at the top and a narrow opening at the bottom, and you use it to guide like ingredients from one place to another without making a mess. So it's just a more precise way to move something from one place to another. So digital marketing for your business with a funnel, this has the same concept. So those ingredients that you pour into the funnel at the top are your community of potential customers. That's a cold audience. And kind of like in baking, you've got to have those right ingredients before you start. Then, just like how in baking with that funnel, the liquid moves down the funnel, people who come into your funnel at the top because you're using different methods to bring them in there. Could be organic content, could be paid, could be you've optimized your website for SEO. They're moving to the middle of your funnel. And that's through a nurtured process. So they're getting exposure to you. They're learning about who you are. They're getting some questions answered. They're kind of figuring out and being able to name maybe what they struggle with more specifically as they get to know you and what you do and how you can help them. And maybe they're becoming a little bit more interested in what you sell. So then finally at the bottom where the funnel is very narrow, people do move to the bottom, but you'll notice because of the shape, some people are going to fall off. So you might pull in a lot of people at the start. Not everybody's going to go to the middle, and not everybody in the middle is going to go to the bottom. When they get to the bottom, that's when they become your customers. So they do what's called a conversion, which is just an action that someone takes in your business that brings you money or some way to make money. And then at that point, once they've exited that funnel, they become a part of your community, your warm community. And some of them will even become loyal brand ambassadors or advocates, and they will be so excited to just share about you and everything you do. And that's sort of like the life cycle of your marketing funnel. And the idea is to constantly have people coming in at the top and then moving down through. So then you can have a system where you're consistently bringing interested people into your business who want to work with you. Sometimes this is also also called a sales funnel or a conversion funnel. But another way to look at it that doesn't sound so marketing-ish is to just call it a customer journey, because that's really what it is. A person goes on a journey from point A to point Z with your product or your service being at the end, that point Z. And there's specific things they do along the way as they move through that journey. Now, if you have a low-cost product or service, that funnel process might be pretty quick. It won't be hard for them to decide to go ahead and purchase your product. And you've probably seen some of these products on Facebook. There are a lot of them right now, $27 products. I actually have one as well. And you can almost treat these as top of funnel or even middle of funnel products because it's such a low cost that people don't need to know you super well to make that investment. They're comfortable paying $27 and continuing to get to know you as they continue to move through that funnel. However, if you have a different kind of business model, let's say you have a really high cost product or service, it's going to take longer for them to move through the funnel, because if you are asking someone to spend more than usually it's about $400 or $500, they really need to get to know you. They need to have a more personalized experience as they move through that funnel before they're willing to jump all the way to point Z with you. Okay, so we've talked about just sort of these broad concepts around a marketing funnel, and I told you with that scenario at the start that there was a problem with it. So let's talk about what that problem is. So if you recall, just to refresh your mind, that scenario was 100,000 people you're exposed to each month through some form of organic or paid marketing. Then of those 100,000, you get 10,000 on your email list. And of those 10,000, you target them for an ad for your product. And about 10% see and click with some kind of interest onto your sales page. And then of those 1,000, about 10% purchase, which is 100 customers a month. And with your $100 product, that equates to $10,000 a month in sales, which sounds amazing, but it's not realistic. And let's talk about why. So like I said, we've all seen these types of scenarios around the web. I'm actually thinking of an ad right now that lays out a scenario just like this, and I've seen it so many times. I think you've probably seen similar ones. It's usually from marketing gurus or, so-called experts who claim to have the entire funnel thing figured out. They just toss out round numbers like what I've just done and blanketed conversion rates that sound really good, but don't factor in the reality of things like your industry and what those specific industry averages are for you. So every industry has different averages for click-through rates, which is a percentage. That's the number of people who end up clicking your ad from the number of people who actually saw it. And a normal click-through rate, by the way, is not 10%. A normal click-through rate is at least 1%, but again, it varies depending on the average. And conversion rates are another industry average that varies wildly depending on what you sell, what you do. A conversion rate is the number of people that actually buy compared to the number of people who clicked to your landing page. So for example, if you're in the consumer goods space, your conversion rate is pretty high because people know that they need consumer goods. They more just kind of have like a brand loyalty. It's not really a question of having to convince them if they need this item. They know they need it. They're just deciding if they like your brand or not. But if you're in the business to business space, B2B, your conversion rate averages are a lot lower. They're more like 4% because it's more difficult to get a business to commit to your service. They really got to understand the value. So it's more of like a mindset game versus like a physical need game. So you can see how your industry really impacts the consumer behavior and those averages. And those averages are what you should be basing your decisions off of when you're thinking about, okay, how much money am I going to spend on ads and all that kind of thing. And so another thing that can really vary and impact those round numbers that I tossed out in this scenario is the audience that you're targeting with your ads. So how big is it and how much does it cost to reach just 1,000 people in that audience? This is called CPM, the cost per mil, and that is really how ad space on Facebook should be thought of. You should always be thinking about it in terms of how much it's going to cost you to reach just 1,000 people. Why? Because when you reach about 1,000 people, that's a pretty good starter group of people to see if you're getting clicks, if you're getting engagement, if you start to get conversions, and if you're not really seeing that activity, it could be very competitive for your industry, or there could be something that you need to troubleshoot with your ad, all that kind of thing. Now, another thing that the scenario doesn't take into account is all the time and effort spent constructing that funnel to make all of this work. So all the moving parts, like just as one example, just the automations that you need in your email system to make sure everything triggers correctly and people are tagged and segmented and granted access to your product and then get a follow-up email and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm going to name off just a few more things. The customer service side, like the scenario doesn't factor that in. What about people wanting refunds? What about people having questions, dealing with tech glitches? Which, speaking of tech glitches, what about your tech costs involved to run all of those different moving parts I just mentioned? Your email system, a payment processing software, the place your course is hosted, and so on. Plus, not to mention all the time you've spent figuring out the ads on your own, making sure your tracking pixels work, creating your product, maintaining your community, posting content, all of it. So that scenario sounds really nice on paper, but it does not factor in real life. So I've probably really burst your bubble, but I've got good news because that scenario that I described, while, yeah, it's super vague, it doesn't really have all the details that we need, but it's not entirely out of reach. Because here's the truth that very few people are saying. Yeah, you can have a really awesome, amazing funnel for your business that works, but it takes careful, purposeful action to construct a funnel that looks and works like that. It takes time to troubleshoot it. It takes dedication to figuring out exactly who you serve and why, and then carefully creating that funnel for that group of people. This is why funnels get a bad name, because other people are out there talking about them as if you quickly throw it together with a product and everybody loves your product and it runs on autopilot and becomes a cash machine for your business, and then you can go on vacation all around the world. Now, is it possible to create a funnel like that? Yeah, we just said you can. Is it probable to create one on the fly with little thought? No. Also, I just want to clarify another point. It takes time for your funnel to become profitable too. Very rarely is a funnel out the gate going to be making you a six-figure income. Definitely takes time. Now, here's my thing with funnels. So I'm in marketing, right? I'm used to thinking in funnels. So my brain works in funnels. I'm always trying to connect the dots, figure out how we can bring someone from point A to point Z. Do they even belong in the funnel? How can we be relevant to them? How can we be thoughtful? How can we be helpful to them as we move them along? That's how my brain works. But as social media platforms introduced self-serve advertising, which is, the Twitter ads, the Facebook ads, the Instagram ads, where you can buy it yourself, you don't need to go through a third party to buy those ad spaces. Suddenly everyone and their dog was an expert funnel builder and was building all these funnels and teaching people how to do it. And what happened? Funnels became an F word that you don't want to hear because they felt slimy, they felt like a bait and switch, and they felt like just something for you to get pushed inside of for someone to make money off of you, and that they don't actually care about you. I mean, I don't know about you, but me as a marketer, that's how I came to view funnels online. I would imagine some funnel builder thinking, how can we trick as many people as possible into going into our funnel with some free offer and then entice them to purchase and just keep moving from person to person? How can we get as many people in this funnel as possible? And that's maddening to me. And it's a huge reason why I do what I do, which is teach business owners like you that it starts with a carefully considered funnel. It's friendships over funnels. Yes, a funnel is essential to your business, whether your business is primarily online or has a physical location or a mixture of both, but that funnel has got to be built in a very customer-centric, experience-focused, mindful way. Because when you build a funnel like that, sustainable long-term growth for your business is totally achievable, and you can feel happy and at ease about your marketing strategy because you're not over there just trying to make money to make money. You're creating your dream, you're helping others. It really is a win-win, and this is the ideal situation for a funnel. But it starts by first designing that funnel for a real person who has a real problem that you can solve for real. Okay? Now, I wonder if you're like me as you were listening to this, and you are kind of jaded by the whole funnel thing. And maybe it's refreshing to you to hear someone else saying this and saying that, they've been teaching you the wrong way to build funnels. You can build friendships with your customers, and actually you should. I know that that's 100% true and possible. And I have a feeling you know that too, because you think of your customers as your friends. They think of people that you serve because you care about them, and they naturally end up in that funnel with you because you carefully created it for them from the start to serve and uplift them. And they're happy to be in that funnel with you. And the term with you being the key section of that sentence here, because you're in it with them. You're not like looking out over your funnel and being like, all right, guys, go in there, make me some money. You're in there with them, guiding them through, helping them, serving them. And that's what makes your funnel work. So all that said, let's get into some like real nitty gritty details here and stop talking all philosophical about funnels as much as I could do that all day long. There are two major considerations when it comes to building an online funnel for your business. Let's talk about them. So the first is the fact that a funnel isn't really linear. It doesn't run in a straight line. People are not linear. Someone may discover your website and they're already in the middle of their funnel. They came across you because they were researching, like very specifically, their problem using jargon or words that are super specific to your industry. So let's say, for example, you're a wedding photographer. Someone in the middle of their funnel may be Googling things like wedding photographer with boho style near me. They're using words and terms that are kind of specific versus a top of funnel search, which is more like, what should I look for in a wedding photographer? That will give them information about style, which helps them along in their decision process and helps them name some of the parts of their problem that they need to solve. So I hope this is making sense. Now, in other cases, someone may zoom into the bottom of your funnel, but then pop up because something happens in their life and that's out of their control. So they wanted to buy, but they can't quite yet. So they're going to hang out with you for a while until they can. But because they came in at the bottom of the funnel, meaning they could very specifically name their problem, they knew exactly that you could solve it and what you do. They're very familiar with this whole entire scenario. They can describe it. So they're going to pop back up to the middle of the funnel because they want to keep seeing for certain that you know what you're talking about. So when the time is right again for them, they can buy. And then of course, there are the people who come in at the top and they get to know you. They like you, they follow you, and they ultimately walk along that path in a straight line because it does happen. There are people that do that. Now, I want you to see with these scenarios, though, that you can't predict how someone is going to move through your funnel. And I also want to get super meta here and point out how I used some specific words just a moment ago. When I was talking about that person for the wedding photographer, I said their funnel, as in that person's funnel. We are all in our own funnel. And your funnel as the business owner is only really going to work when it aligns to the funnel of the person that you're attracting. I know this is like very meta, like funnel over funnel. Funnel makes funnel. I think I could be that gif right now of the woman, if you've ever seen it, where it's like zoomed on her face and there's all these like math figures floating around her head. That's what I'm being right now. But it's true. So like every person is in their own decision-making funnel when they start to become aware that they have a problem. Where they are at in their own personal decision-making funnel or process or journey, whatever you want to call it, needs to align with everything that you've created in your funnel to help move them through that. And that's kind of how you weed out the people who aren't going to work for you and how the people who will work end up staying there and moving through. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. Now, because this is kind of the way things work psychologically and just truthfully in the real world, it's important to have, like I said, strategic, specific, relevant content at each part of your funnel or the journey that you want someone to take when they meet you, get to know you, realize how you can help them, start thinking more detailed about what that means, and then ultimately decide to make the decision to work with you. So it's really important to be purposeful when you create that funnel. Make sure it has a very clear path. You have that intro content that familiarizes a person with what you do, who you are, and how you can help. And that content is specifically designed, it's called top of funnel content, to help that person who's entered in there give a name to what it is that they struggle with and to start to piece together what a solution for their problem could be. Because when someone's at top of funnel, they may have a vague idea like, oh, I'm really irritated that I haven't figured out my photographer yet for my wedding. But they don't know any details yet. They don't really know what style they want. They don't really know what package they want. They don't know how things are going to go the day of. They're still learning. So it's your job to help them figure that out. Then they move to the middle. So that middle content is content that's a little bit more specific. So maybe it troubleshoots certain aspects of the problem. It doesn't totally solve everything, but it at least provides some action actionable steps. So if we go back to that example earlier of the person did a Google search, what kind of style photographer do I want? Maybe you on your website as a wedding photographer have a lead magnet quiz that says, let's figure out your photography style. And it helps them put a name to that problem, gets them on your email list, and then you can further nurture them from there. And that takes us to the bottom of the funnel, where you're actively and openly sharing your solution and how it applies to their very specific singular problem that you can solve really well, better than anyone else. This is content that really goes in deep about what you do. So this can be like FAQ content on your website. This can be sales pages, package pages, services pages, where you're using specific industry terms or jargon that they're going to understand now because they've researched enough, they've gotten enough to the point in the funnel where they can name, verbalize what they're struggling with and what kind of solution they need for that, and understand how you are the solution for that. So all of that leads to the second thing to know about funnels, which is that most people think about them backwards. So most people design their funnel from the top down using those benchmarks I just shared, that top, middle, bottom of funnel, and those types of content that exist at each point of the funnel. You may be wondering, why is this a bad idea? Like, doesn't it seem like you should organize your funnel from top to bottom? Well, it is a bad idea, and here's why. It means you start out pretty vague. It means you probably have things that you do or sell that are floating around, but you haven't really connected them to anything on a journey for your buyer. And you're hoping as you work through your funnel, you'll figure out where they can fit into the picture and you can just kind of stuff them in there. It means you don't have a clear vision about who you serve and why you serve them. And you may not even have like a very specific itemized list of the things that your solution solves for your ideal client. And I'm not talking about like, oh, it transforms your life. Like I'm talking about specific things like the features of your solution, not just the benefits. So this usually results in a pretty messy funnel. It can sometimes mean things are even included in the funnel that don't belong and end up being a little bit off-putting or confusing because they're not dialed in to who you serve and that one specific thing that you can solve for them really well. But if you start at the end and backwards engineer your funnel, guess what happens? You create a through line from the bottom to the top. And that through line is what will make sure every single part of your funnel points to one thing. So I want you to imagine when you backwards engineer your funnel that there's a string that you have put through the funnel and it's knotted at the end and the knot can't be pulled up. And you pull that string taut. And as you do, you imagine things kind of climb up from there when you are visualizing how to backwards engineer your funnel. That through line that you've just created means that every single part of your funnel, like I said, points to that one thing. That knot at the very bottom is that solution that you provide. So that means as you backwards engineer your funnel, you'll think from the end, this is the service that I provide, the main thing that helps my business make money. What are the things that someone needs to know as they become less and less and less familiar with what it is that I do? Okay, now I'm going to give you a bonus third thing to keep in mind when creating a funnel. Don't overcomplicate it. Because what I just said there about the knot and your one thing, and I've said it several times, that one specific thing, I might have actually been giving you heart palpitations, especially if you are like a product-based business and you sell multiple things. Your funnel has to be simple. There has to be one endpoint per funnel. You cannot have multiple endpoints in a funnel. That's not a funnel. It doesn't work that way. You can have multiple funnels, but you should nail one funnel at a time before you move on to the next one. Now let's go back to that product-based business. Let's say that you are a clothing retailer. You can have lots of types of clothing, but think about it. If you sell sweatshirts and you sell t-shirts, well, someone who wants a t-shirt has a different problem than someone who sells a sweatshirt. So those are two separate funnels. You sell clothes as like your vague umbrella term, but for the person that's buying the sweatshirt, you sell sweatshirts. You don't sell clothes generalized. You sell a very specific item of clothing. And for the person who wants a t-shirt, you only sell t-shirts to them. They may go and buy other things, but when they go and look at other things, they've shifted their mindset and now they're in sweatshirt mode versus t-shirt mode. So this is what I mean about getting so purposeful and thoughtful and why it's so important, because it just makes your life easier in the long run because you've carefully crafted a funnel designed specifically for that person so they feel like they're getting, top tier experience with you. Okay, so let's quickly recap because we covered a lot. There's a ton of info out there about high-performing funnels that will grow your business into six figures with very little work on your end. And we've kind of determined that that's a pie in the sky dream. It takes work, it takes thought, and it takes careful consideration. But it doesn't mean you can't have a six-figure funnel. It just means you've got to be careful with how you put it together. You've got to be focused, strategic, and mindful. So what does that look like? It looks like first understanding a person's journey in your funnel isn't necessarily linear, and you have no control over that. Your job is to simply create things for them to consume at every step of the way to help them along their journey. And secondly, it looks like having one single aligned funnel that's backwards engineered from one offer, one service, one product, or one group of similar products. Just one thing. You can leverage things like an upsell or downsell as well, but that's a totally separate conversation for another day. And for today's purpose, simplicity is the thing. And thirdly, it looks like remembering that having too many items in a funnel means no one is going to buy because they're just going to get confused. You have way too many offers and they're not going to understand the clear path in that funnel, and they're going to pop out because they won't see how you clearly help them. It'll just be way too overwhelming. All right, now before we wrap this up, I want to do a quick little promo because I'm teaching with my husband and co-host Alex a class about this very process in a couple weeks. We've got 3 times and dates available from July 29th through the 31st. We're going to teach more in depth about the topics we've covered today. So you're going to learn more about that backwards funnel approach I mentioned. You're going to learn about what I call the waterfall effect of content creation. So that ensures that you have content to hit every part of that journey through the funnel. And last, you'll learn what makes up a no-fail tech stack for implementing a carefully created online marketing funnel. I said no fail. You can't fail if you use this tech stack. Now, if that sounds interesting to you, you can register at amandamrosen.com/3-step funnel class. That's all one word, amandamrosen.com/3-step funnel class. Now, in total transparency, because that's the way we do things around here, yes, this free class is going to have an offer on it. We're going to be kicking off enrollment to our brand new program that Alex and I are launching together, and I'm so excited about it. It's called Digital Marketing Funnel University. So Digital Marketing Funnel University is a one-on-one program for business owners who want the attention, guidance, and assistance in designing, creating, and implementing a working, simplified, focused funnel for your business. That was a really long sentence, wasn't it? And if you caught that, I said one-on-one. So we're only accepting 20 students into the program because you'll be working with us individually for 12 weeks to create a customized funnel for you, for your business. So this is not a one-size-fits-all, self-guided, blanketed approach because you're mindful, right? You don't want that. You're done with that. You're burnt on that kind of thing. You want to create a funnel that works the first time, and you want it to be customized for your business, and you want it to actually work. So if that sounds interesting to you, you want to hear more about that, you want to attend the class, you can grab your spot at the free class. Again, that link is amandamrosen.com/3-step funnel class. All right. So I want to thank you for listening. And as always, if you have thoughts or anything to share with me, you can find me on Instagram. I'm Amanda M. Rosen. I spend a lot of time on there. You can check out my kids and my pets on stories. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. And I will see you next week. Stay mindful.